is a big chunk.
And then there's certain things too that we could all
Okay, quarterly. Okay. No, it's better than mine. I couldn't remember what we'd.
We're ready to start whenever you are, Rich.
Okay. Oh, Ann is with us. Great. Great. All right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for January 18th, 2024. Welcome, everybody. And I'll jump right in with public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to address the Public Safety Committee? I see nobody in the room. Is there anybody online? Nobody wishes to speak with us. Okay. Changes to the agenda. I would like to move things around a little bit. Dan Cornell has an obligation at 4 o'clock, and so I'd like to move probation up to right after Chair's report. So we'll try to get that done before he has to go. We have minutes from December 14th, 2023. Could I get a motion on the minutes? Veronica moves. Mike, can you help me out here?
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Mike seconds. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none. And Ann, are you voting today or are you not?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. You vote yes on the minutes?
I do.
Okay. Mike?
I agree.
And Veronica?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So they're passed. And the chair's report. I did want to have a beginning discussion on possible goals for 2024. And I had some thoughts, but I hope that you guys put your thinking caps on as well, and that would include any of the department heads or other people online that think you have some ideas about where we should be focusing in the coming year. I did have a conversation with Judge Scott Miller, who has been kind enough to join us today, on one of the potential goals, which would be a respite house. And Judge Miller, maybe you just want to talk to us for a few minutes on what that entails.
Sure. Thanks for getting me out of the courthouse next door for a few minutes, Rich. I am one of your family court judges. I work with Judge Cassidy and Judge Rowley, who has, announced he's soon to be retiring. But the three of us are the family court judges that serve the county. And over the last several years, there's a crisis that all three of us have been dealing with. And your county attorney, acting county attorney, who now is Holly Mosier, knows about this crisis intimately. We have in our family court part, it's unfortunately there's an archaic term that is still used. It's called juvenile delinquency proceedings. These are not criminal cases, but they may have started criminally, but most cases are non-criminal. They involve young people, ages of about 12 to 17 and even 18 years old, that are charged with juvenile offenses. But there's also another part in our family court of it's called PINS, person in need of supervision, young people who are having issues in school, truancy issues, homelessness. And we have, and all the family court judges have this juvenile part that we're working with our young people in crisis. And we find on numerous occasions we have young people that don't have a safe place, home to return to. They're in some type of mental health crisis. They have been suspended from school and have no home to a safe home to return to where they can get tutoring if they've been suspended from school. And we have young people who are charged with these low-level juvenile offenses that they don't have a safe home to return to. And as you know from Raise the Age and the new the requirements that the jail can no longer hold young people, which certainly is a great idea, there's no alternative that the state funded. And I've noticed that the county has some properties up for sale, and I've been talking to our county attorney, probation officers, caseworkers at the Department of Social Services, our attorneys for children, and we are often confronted with these young people who, because there's nowhere we can safely put them within our county, Sheriff Osborne, if he was here, I know would chime in. We have this situation where the only option, and again, young people not charged with any crimes. They might be truancy or issues or shoplifting offenses, juvenile cases. The only option we then have is we have to have the sheriff hold these young people not in jail, but in their civil division while we're looking for some facility where we can put this young person. Now, some counties, very few throughout New York State have what are called juvenile respite homes. These are not jails. These are not detention facilities. There's Sagamore has one. There's one in Syracuse, the Hutchings Child and Adolescent Crisis Respite facility. We have a desperate need for one in our county. We have so many young people that are brought into family court that are experiencing mental health crises, substance abuse crises, crises at school, and also they've got a home situation that is not safe. They may be working with the Department of Social Services, and there may be some type of neglect proceeding pending against one of their parents. These are not young people that we should ask the sheriff to be detaining in their civil division while we're looking for a detention facility outside of our county. These are our young people. I've been meeting with, I think the term is stakeholders, we call them stakeholders, for the last 12 months. A couple of our legislators here I've been meeting with. What can we do to serve our young people in Tompkins County to keep them in our county, keep them safe, provide them with mental health services, provide them with substance use treatment services, provide them with tutoring, and provide them the concept of a respite home or respite facility. These are not long-term residences. I'm not talking about a long-term facility. These could be anywhere from 24, 48 hours to maybe 1 or 2 weeks where a young person in crisis can get connected with all of the services that young person needs. And these are our young people. We shouldn't be sending them to the sheriff. We shouldn't be sending them out of our county. So I know there's properties that the county either owns or is looking at, but certainly that is a desperate need that is decades overdue. So I'm speaking, on behalf of the other family court judges that are in agreement. We need a juvenile respite home or facility in our county, and we're actually starting to put together a committee to figure out if we identify a location, what licensing is required. We've got Office of Mental Health. We've got Office of Children and Family Services. This is not going to be easy. But you're all here not because any of you do anything that's easy. The reason you're all here is precisely because this is hard stuff, and that's why we do it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction. And I would note, I wrote to Holly Mosier, and she sent me a longer email I'll share with the committee members, but she also said, I believe it's a critical issue affecting community and child safety. So she sees this as a worthy issue to spend time on as well. But I see.
We want to hope that our young people, if we have to catch them young, so they, I know this is the Public Safety Committee. We don't want to see them ending up with criminal charges and in front of me in criminal court and having to deal with the district attorney's office. We want to prevent that.
Yeah, I see our undersheriff is with us. Jennifer, is there anything you would like to comment on with this as a potential goal for the year?
No, I think we've had several meetings over the last couple of years regarding this. Just clarification, we keep them in our criminal investigations division, not civil division. We utilize our only interview room, which also hinders our operations. I think, as with many departments in the state, they're having staffing issues, so that would just be one consideration if we did find the location to hold the respite. Having the staffing to staff it would also be something you'd probably potentially have to consider. And I know we also discussed the ability of the William George Agency, but I know that these respite homes have to be approved as well. But if the county wasn't able to find locations, I think it would be, if there is an ability to work with the William George Agency to see what approvals we would need to use their open space as well. But it's definitely well needed.
Okay. We would certainly need to get the DSS, get Kephart involved. Mike?
I just have a question. What's qualified as a juvenile? Like,
The few respite facilities that are operating in New York, 10 to 17. And this doesn't mean a young person that is in the court system. This could be any young person that is in crisis. Does not mean they have to have some type of court proceeding. There's plenty of young people that would be in need of a respite facility that aren't involved in the court system for a variety of reasons. It could be completely educational.
how long would we envision somebody staying there? I know you said it's not permanent, but
1 or 2 days often for a crisis situation, but up to several weeks.
I just ask because the school districts and, would they?
There seems to be enthusiasm with superintendents and school board members that I've spoken to about how this could solve an issue of if a student is suspended, sending a tutor, where do you send the tutor? And it might be the home of the young person might not be safe. And also to have several students in one respite facility. So some of these respite facilities actually have a classroom set up so a tutor can work with several students at once. So I think there's enthusiasm amongst our superintendents and school board members, some of them that I've spoken to.
Maybe even dollars.
We've had how many group homes close? I mean,
Yeah.
I think those buildings are sitting there, so I don't.
Well, Lisa.
Thank you for this. I know this has been an issue. It's certainly been an issue with the advent of Raise the Age, but something that I've at least observed is that we're in a conundrum in terms of it's a critical issue when it's an issue, and when it's not, we don't have the mass or the volume of youth, at least in terms of Raise the Age, that rose to the threshold of being able to open a facility that was specialized secure detention, et cetera. There was a period of time, a couple of years, where we were trying to coordinate with a number of counties on this. I understand you're talking about.
This would not be detention.
This would be respite.
Yeah, and I think the community would have to know that these are not people charged with any serious juvenile offenses. That would require potentially a secure detention facility. There's a lot of need for young people that just don't have a place to go, that are in crisis, and a lot of people we get in family court that don't have any serious allegations against them, that they would never be sent to a secure facility. But sometimes if there's no place for them to go and they're going to be homeless on the street, we have to ask the sheriff to take them into custody, again, not in their jail, but.
So the instances that you were describing where they're being held in the investigation in the county jail were not criminal related?
Not criminal. They might be charged with a juvenile offense. They might have run away from home. They might be what's called a person in need of supervision. That's not even a juvenile offense. So there's a whole category of young people that come into our juvenile part that don't have any criminal charges, and it wouldn't have started even as a Raise the Age that got sent to family court. We have a lot of those young people, but sometimes the family court judges are confronted with a situation, and it always seems to be on a Friday, where we have this young person who we have nowhere to send them in our county. There's no foster family that we can send them to. And the only option to keep them safe so they're not just walking, on the street somewhere, is we have the authority to order them into detention, which they really shouldn't be put into detention. If we had a facility where there was a caseworker, a respite facility that was safe, that would be the option the family court judges would be using. And then we have this conversation with the county attorney and DSS, and they have to tell us we don't have that facility.
And the analogy I've heard is that they're not yet really engaging in criminal conduct, but it's kind of like the JV team. They're going to get there, that if we don't address it in some manner, and I think there's some truth there. Jennifer.
Yeah, I just clarification around what Lisa just brought up is the individuals that have been held at the sheriff's office, at least while we've been in office, have been ordered to secure specialized secure detention facilities. So there seems to be a couple different things we're talking about, juveniles or youth that are we're waiting on specialized secure detention facilities, and individuals or youth that are just in crisis. And I'm just wondering if they would be able to be housed. That would probably be a question for DSS together. And just to clarify, any youth that we're holding, we're waiting for a specialized secure detention facility.
Judge, maybe you could help me with this. Is there any discretion in the court system where you could send a youth to specialized secure detention or to a respite?
Yes. And and myself and the other family court judges, because we have no options, and the option of just letting that young person remain homeless and be out in the street, that is an awful option. We have had to order young people into secure detention because there is no respite facility. Yeah, that's the conundrum.
Okay. So, Veronica, yeah.
I had a couple things, but right now, just to clarify that point, so there's some of the teenagers that you're sending to the sheriff's office, had there been a respite house, you might have ordered them sent there.
100% yes.
But instead, you order them sent to the sheriff's office for specialized secure detention, and then, like, under Sheriff Olin, once they get there, this is like a kid coming with paperwork that says they have to be in specialized secure detention, and
right.
then you have to
Fine.
that way.
And then they have to wait on an availability of some bed somewhere which isn't available. And they often, the poor sheriff has to house this young person often for a weekend while we're all scrambling to find a friend, a relative, because it's always on a Friday it happens. And then we bring that young person back on Monday, and then we found something. But what an awful option. A young person, they don't go into the jail, and I know the undersheriff keeps repeating that. They are not in the jail. We don't order the young person to be held in the jail. They are not in the jail, but they're in the...
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we have a basic understanding of what it would be here. Lee, welcome. We were talking about the possibility or various goals for 2024, and we're at the discussion stage. But my view is this would be a worthy goal for the committee to look at in terms of learning about it, understanding feasibility, and then perhaps moving forward with something, with a proposal. What's the sense of the committee? Veronica? Oh, Annie.
Well, first off, yes, I agree that this is a worthy goal for the committee. I'm sorry I'll be not on the committee next year or the rest of the year. But I had a long meeting with a family member who had in the time of crisis, this child, their family member in that exact situation. And I know the sheriff's department did the best they could, but it was, in a time of crisis to be having this person not really having a great place for them. It just added to the stress for everybody. So absolutely.
Okay. Veronica.
Yeah, thanks. I also think that this is a great goal for this committee, and Judge Miller, I appreciate you bringing this, and that it sounds like you've already done quite a lot of work in this direction. I guess from what I'm hearing, it's that you and the other judges and the sheriff's office and our deputy county attorney and others have found that this is a clear hole in our social safety net community structures. I don't even know what to call it.
That's perfect how you
Okay.
just described it, yeah.
Yeah, at the kind of thing where someone can fall through and then a small crisis just can escalate into snowball into something worse for the safety of them, the safety for other people down the road. Becomes much more costly, I'm sure, even if you just look at dollars. So I think it's a great idea to figure out a way to do this, or I don't know where the regulations go, but at least create something like a respite house that would serve a good chunk of the people a good proportion of the people you're thinking of.
Lee.
Apologize for being late here, but what's the number you're looking at on a yearly basis? Estimate a number of times this would be utilized?
I don't know, and part of next month I was going to start meeting with some of our stakeholders to study how many beds do we think we would need. Some of the long-term employees of the county that I've spoken to that have a lot more institutional memory than me have given me figures of, if we had a place with 20 rooms, we would fill it. The respite facilities that, I'm familiar with in Sagamore and Syracuse, they're smaller facilities, 4 to 10 bed facilities. So
I think the Syracuse one looks like it serves more than just Onondaga County. So,
well, and if there's an unused room, there's such a need for these throughout the region. Tompkins County could certainly offer availability to other counties to use that. So I think it would be nothing would be unused if there was a respite room available for a young person.
does this seem like a reasonable goal to look at this? Okay, Mike?
I was for it months ago, so.
What's that?
I was for it months ago, so I'm
Okay,
for it now.
you're still with it. Okay. All right, good. Judge, thank you so much for coming in. I think what we might do is when you get your stakeholders group in full action mode.
Could I invite, would you let me know which one of you would maybe be willing to come to that stakeholders meeting that's going to have attorneys and the county attorney and
Yes, we.
caseworkers? So.
We're having one new member join us next month. Ann is going off the committee and Shauna Black is joining. So we could then put it out and
I'll let you know when our first meeting is sometime in February, and whoever can join us from Public Safety Committee, that would be very welcome.
that would be great. Okay, thanks. Lisa?
I would just suggest as we discuss this moving forward, both Kit Kephart and Kate Shanks Booth have dealings with respite, and I know this is certainly an instance where I think the direction the state is heading with deinstitutionalizing, and respite is considered institutionalization. That is why we're seeing the closure of some of these places and the bent toward family-based care and so forth. So I think that, and then I know that Youth Services funds the Open Doors program through Family and Children. So I think that they both could share some insight into where the state's going and what other local resources are trying to do to fill this need as well.
Your stakeholders group, I assume that's including Youth Services and somebody from DSS. And
I've had a lot of conversations with caseworkers and counsel at DSS, and Kip will be invited.
And it is interesting to me that the state wants to deinstitutionalize, but I don't know how you just say, well, then the problem will go away. I don't think it will. So there has to be a solution of some kind. I'm wondering what the state is really contemplating, but I guess that's something for us to learn as we look at this goal. Okay, let's keep moving.
Thanks for inviting me, Rich.
Oh, thank you for coming over. As you might recall, we are in our third year of Reimagining Public Safety, and this is the third year. We funded it for a 3-year program, and we collaborated with the city, but one of the charges I think we should probably have for this year is to look at what comes next. Do we want to continue the same program? Do we want to continue the Community Justice Center and funding of it? Do we want to do something different? And I think that's a goal we kind of have in 2024, because 2025 we will see something different or the same, and we'll have to make decisions about that. Comments, questions, thoughts? Veronica.
I agree with that, and I know I would find it helpful to see some sort of summary report. I don't know about what the Reimagining Public Safety program has been and what would end, what would continue. We can call it one program, but it's like a whole bunch of different things in various places, and I couldn't list them all right now off the top of my head.
Yeah, you're right. It's essentially, it is a resolution with 17 different elements to it. And I think having a report on where we are on those 17 separate things would be a really good starting point. Lee?
What would be interesting for me with it being at the end of 3 years, I am thinking a majority, if not all these initiatives were funded on a 3-year basis. And so there's certainly a cost attached to each one of those. And if we were to be continuing them on, we'd be looking at permanent funding for these programs. So we may want to see a spreadsheet that shows what investments we've made thus far and what you're looking at on a continuing basis. And in terms of viewing the success of those programs, figure out which ones we may prioritize and move ahead, because now the budget implications are going to start to be more apparent.
Yeah. Okay. Mike?
I just want to say, I don't think we should be shy either about, it seems like government generally doesn't like to say mission accomplished, or, not to go back to George W. Bush, but I mean, at some point, I hope that we as a government will say, listen, we did a good job with that because there are certain initiatives that the sheriff has done, the mental health, that aspect of it, where while it will continue on, in the terms of what we were trying to do, we did kind of accomplish that. He and Jen took the ball and were able to advance it. And I don't think we should be shy about saying that,
I agree with you. I think we have done some very good things, and the CARE team is a great example of that. So, yeah, I think we have to see that report. So it sounds like there's consensus here. This should be one of our goals for 2024. I have two more items, and I don't mean to hog the goal-setting discussion, but I'll throw them out there. One is the rapid medical response, that this does certainly look like it's getting launched, and we are certainly in a fortunate position with receiving grant funds so that the financial considerations are much easier for this first year. But there's going to be a lot to look at here as this starts. So this seems like a fairly obvious goal for 2024, but I take comment from anybody on this one. It seems to be consensus there from silence. Okay. The other one we've had some conversation with Dan Cornell about, and that under the GIVE grant, there's some really different obligations coming forward for probation officers. And particularly, the concern is that probation officers are being put into riskier situations and a different sort of client base where safety is a larger aspect of their day-to-day job. And Dan, I'd invite you to chime in and state this better than I just did.
Well, thank you, Rich. I hope I can state it better than you can. I'm not sure of that at this point. We're formulating our 2024 goals now, and certainly officer safety is one of the priorities that we're looking at. The gun-involved violence elimination supervision cases, we're finding that a lot of the people identified in the community as being at high risk of perpetrating gun violence are on probation or wind up on probation. I think that has been the case, but is now the case to a higher level than it was pre-COVID, pre-bail reform. We're occasionally going out into the community, investing ourselves in roadside, intervening in roadside stops when the police have pulled over people who are under our supervision, and there's a reason to believe that they may have weapons on them. I think we have a duty to intervene in those situations and enforce the probation conditions by conducting searches and trying to remove illegal firearms from people who should not have them. As we're currently unarmed, we're relying on the sheriff's department or other police agencies to provide our backup and be our safety providers in those instances. It's a cause for concern. It's been a cause for discussion. We've met with the county attorney's office to discuss some of our concerns. I just think it's something that this committee needs to be aware of, that we're noticing a change both in clientele and in job expectations that we're being asked to perform as a part of the GIVE grant. It's all well within probation's purview. It's just a change from prior practice that I think needs to be recognized.
My view is this is something I think it would be worthwhile for us to take a look at to make sure that our processes and our systems are appropriate to make sure our probation officers is as safe as we can make them. But I'd welcome comment. Okay. All right, other goals. There's other brains in the room here, probably better than mine.
I always go back to the same question. Do the department heads have any specific goals they're looking at that would synchronize with the work of the committee?
Yeah, certainly they're invited to jump in. Lisa.
Well, I would say we've had this discussion. On an annual basis, we try to compile the departmental goals and bring them to the committees to share, to see where they line up and so forth. And so we're currently gathering those and plan to bring them to the committee in February.
Great.
That's not to preempt anyone who wants to jump in now to the discussion, but just so you'll have them in writing as well.
All right, anybody else? All right, well, yeah, Veronica.
Oh, well, Dan has his hand up. I just had a question. Is the public safety building renovation or reconstruction going to come this committee's way this year at all, or is that further in the future?
I think it's further in the future, but certainly if it became timely, we could add that. I don't anticipate it in 2024, even though, you know, we probably should be pushing it up, but financially, I think we decided it was longer term. Lee.
We did raise this question about facilities and infrastructure with Arel about what conceptually he might be looking at, and while he didn't think at the time that we would be ready to move toward any type of a design stage, he did think that there was quite a bit of staff work that would be looking at the operational aspects and some conceptual ideas of what a jail expansion might look like, or a jail renovation, or what have you. I certainly would hope we would keep that in front of us and as a developing program and project.
Okay. Well, maybe just as a placeholder, we should have it there, so if we need it, we can do it. Dan.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble operating my phone, and I can't figure out how to put my hand down, so I may just be waving at you for the rest of the I did want to make a distinction between respite and detention that I'm not sure was really clearly made earlier in the conversation. I mean, PINS offenses are status offenses that don't involve criminal behavior, but I'm personally not aware of any instances where people were put in detention for status offenses or asked to be held. I'm obviously not privy to every decision that's being made over at the court. But I would definitely like to be included as part of that conversation if we're talking about PINS, respite, as well as detention for any conversation that occurs.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm sorry about looks like my hand went down. Good.
It did. All right. Success. Mike.
I don't know if this is really a goal as much of it's just something I've kind of been looking at. A couple of things are going to come online this year, which I think are great initiatives. I mean, not that our detox center is not online, but I think it'll be much more utilized in the coming year, just for staffing issues. I hope those will be resolved this year. And then the mental health stabilization unit, I don't know if that will come online this year, but it'll hopefully be closer by a lot. And I'm just wondering how those are going to mesh into our existing structure. So if police do pick up somebody, how is that determined? Where do you go? Do you book first, take them there for, you know what I'm saying? I'm wondering how all these things that are new now or kind of new are going to mesh together.
Okay. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't think there are things for us to do in that we've made our funding decisions and supportive decisions already, but you're right, the implementation might be something we'd want to keep track of. Okay. You know, we did have a goal last year of trying to track overdoses more accurately in the community. The mental health or whole health is still working on how to do that. I don't know if we need that as a goal in 2024, but it is something I'm still interested that we hear about at some point. So maybe that's a half a goal, like the detox and crisis stabilization, just that we want to know what's happening there. So, right. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. What I would propose is that I would do a draft of these, which is what I've done in past years. I'll do a write-up and share it with everybody, explaining what these goals would be, and we can amend and pick and choose from there, if that makes sense to everybody. Okay. All right. And as I said, I'd like to move Department of Probation and Community Justice to this point in the agenda because Dan has another obligation zooming up at him. So Dan, welcome.
Thank you very much, Rich. Again, as I mentioned, we're working on our 2024 goals and refining those. One of those is creating a dashboard for transparency in line with what the Sheriff's Department and District Attorney's Office are doing. Recently contacted Mona Lita and Rich Davids about that. So we're working towards that goal. Again, we're trying to fill a current vacancy that is going to result in some domino effect. So we've got some hiring going on. We're going to have our first 2 officers ever be put through the new basic course for peace officer class, which is now mandatory for new hires who are going to be peace officers. That's a 9-week program instead of a 4-week program. So it will be interesting seeing how that goes, and I'm looking forward to getting feedback from the officers that are sent to that program to see, you know, what the benefits are versus what has been done in the past for probation officer training. We are getting a few of our staff members who were out for health reasons back, so things are stabilizing numbers wise and workload wise. So we're in pretty good shape. I do think we have 2 resolutions before you to accept grant funding.
I think you might have
one
3.
for Might have 3, okay.
Yeah, you're going to get more money.
As long as, all right, we'll take it.
All right, so why don't we jump into actually, before I get to the resolutions, are there any questions for Dan? Okay. All right. First is authorization to accept an award of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, Probation and Community Justice Department, ID 12156, and I'm moving the revised version you should have found on your desk. Could I get a second? Lee seconds. All right. This looks pretty straightforward. It's a grant for $6,521. Questions or comments? I will call the roll. Ann?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. And then we have authorization to accept an award of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, ID 12141. And I would move it. Veronica seconds. And this is for $124,894. Questions or comments? All right. I will call the roll. Ann?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And then we have a resolution authorization to accept an award of a grant from the Park Foundation, Probation and Community Justice Department, ID 12139. And I would move it. Veronica seconds. Right. And this is for, looks like $25,000. Any questions or comments? We'll call the roll. Ann?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that is unanimous. Any other questions? So I note we got some reports that were updated for December. Should be on your desk, and you got them by email as well. Are there any questions or comments on the SO report and the monthly summary of jail inmate new bookings? Anything? Okay. All right, Dan, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the vote, and see you next month.
All right. Yes, next month. Next up is County Administration. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Rich. I don't have much of a report this month. Only to say it's on my agenda and work plan for the year and early on in the year to convene a meeting with our municipal partners to talk further about the funding for the Rapid Medical Response Program. So that is something that I'd like to start earlier on in the year prior to the budget process. So I'll keep you informed about that. And otherwise, when I mention that, I also want to say, to clarify, we're talking now about funding for 2025. I will keep you informed about that. And then otherwise, I just have one resolution for consideration.
I certainly agree with you that earlier is better than later on this. Part of the reason I think there was some, not uproar, but comments was because we were having the discussion so late in the budget year.
Yes.
And so, yeah, now is the time. So good, thank you. And we have budget adjustment, whole health department in conjunction with the sheriff's department, crisis alternative response engagement care team vehicle, doc ID 12172. And I would move it. Veronica seconds. Do you want to speak to it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Oh, now I'm in the wrong. Yes, thank you. So my understanding of this is that this item wasn't in the Green Fleet capital project for vehicles, and it's a specialty type vehicle. We had the ARPA funds that we have been going through and have fully committed, we had some additional unspent ARPA funds that could be put toward this purpose. And so they're going to be used for the purchase and upfitting of the vehicle that will be an asset of the Sheriff's Department.
And the vehicle exists, right? It's already in operation, is my understanding.
It's my understanding as well, and maybe Jen could confirm that?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yep,
So this
it's all
is-
marked.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we saw some photographs of the graphics on it. And so this is just doing the accounting to move the money where it needs to be in the appropriate account.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, any further questions, comments on this? Are we ready to vote? Annie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So, okay.
Thank you.
Anything further from county administration?
That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, we're up to the sheriff's office, and I see our undersheriff is with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, Derek is at the Winter Sheriff's Conference, so he apologizes for not being here this evening. I don't have anything additional to report besides what's in our monthly report, but I'm definitely open to take questions if there are any.
I did have a couple items, but anybody else wants to go first? I had a comment on page 12 of the packet, the bottom graph. If we look at the unsentenced population held in our jail over the past 12 months or so, it seems to really have stabilized in between 40 and 50. And it had been lower in the last couple of years, although far more volatile. But, you know, trying to do a flattening line through it, it seems like we've got about 10 more people that we're holding in our jail in unsentenced versus prior to that. And I'm just curious if anybody has any thoughts on why there's that differential.
I'm sure Matt would probably be able to give you a better explanation of that.
Matt has all the answers.
Well, not all the answers, but I have some of the answers for this, and it's a combination of things. There's a couple people who have been in jail because they are being considered for mental disease or defect type of resolution, and it takes a long time to get evaluations from psychiatric providers. There's a couple people who fit into that category, and there are quite a few trials scheduled in high-level cases. A murder trial starting in March. So there's some people who are just waiting for trials, and the trial calendar is totally booked going into probably the whole year of 2024 at this point. So that's a combination of things.
So unsentenced doesn't necessarily mean there's been a conviction. It may be pending a trial as well, Matt?
Well, unsentenced means that they either are waiting for a trial or waiting for some resolution, or they have pled guilty to something and are waiting for sentencing, which there are sometimes cases that are adjourned for longer than usual for sentencing for various reasons, and that's the case with a couple of the people in the jail, but that's uncommon.
For example, would this include, say, the 13 or 14 that were charged with crime down on one area of the city?
No, those individuals are either in Tioga County, or there are 2 or 3 of them who are separated in different jails. I think one's in Cortland County. They're potentially witnesses against each other, so there's potential conflicts that they want to avoid by having them all in the same jail. But none of them are in our jail.
Okay, so these numbers are a little higher based on a lot of other factors then?
Based on a lot of gun violence and a lot of, higher level felony charges that result in people being held pending trial, because any of the lower level nonviolent charges are not going to be in our jail.
Thanks. Well, it shows a disturbing trend then.
It might. It might be that we're doing a better job of catching the people that we need to catch, too. So it's hard to say, but the difference in the line graphs is interesting to me.
I do think, Rich, to your point there, the give detail has resulted in people who have been contributing to the gun violence being arrested. So that is, I think, we are doing a better job in catching some of the people that are contributing to the violent crimes that have been disturbingly in the news in the last year.
Certainly, and we got an email from the sheriff, and Jennifer, maybe you wish to speak to that, of some recent arrests that seem to be coming directly from the GIVE program.
Yeah, I won't speak too much about them because they're still need to be prosecuted, but it's just great collaboration between the district attorney's office, probation, and the Ithaca Police Department. I think information sharing is huge, and I definitely see that it's making a difference.
I would think that in the short term, we may see our jail numbers go up even more. But if we're addressing this issue in a effective way, that's probably a real win. We certainly want our jail numbers to be low, that we don't want to hold people that shouldn't be there, that's what our alternatives are about. But there's also some people who really, really want to be in our jail. They work very hard at it, and we want them there as well, I guess. So
Our goal is public safety.
Public safety, yeah. And Jennifer, I also wanted to just thank you for sharing the letter from the resident who was talking about the care team. And I hope all the committee members had a chance to look at that letter. It's really, really powerful. We don't do policy by individual anecdote, but this brings home just how much impact can come from the care program. And it sounds like it's working the way we hoped it would. So I don't know if you want to add anything there.
No, it was a well-written letter, and it was greatly appreciated. And when we were putting the video together as well, we had quite a few individuals who, wanted to be part of that video because we didn't want to make it too long. We cut it down to 2 people that were served by the care team, but we're getting overwhelming positive feedback about the team, and we're really hopeful that it's making a positive contribution to our community.
Well, certainly for this family, it was a home run. So, yes. Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything else for us from the Sheriff's Department?
I believe we have one resolution. It's just
Yep.
common terminal pay and
I have it
disability.
before me. Appropriation from contingent fund, replacement pay, and terminal pay reimbursement, Sheriff's Office, ID 12152. And I would move it. Veronica seconds. Questions or comments? All right, I'll call the roll. Ann?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right. Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, thank you. Next up is our district attorney. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, everybody. I do look at the jail roster, what individuals are in the jail almost every day. And another category that contributes to the long-term inmates who are not sentenced is when there's delay by the defendant or by the person or by their attorney. I can think of 1 or 2 people who have been in for a long time because they haven't made a decision about what I think is a reasonable proposal we've made to resolve their case that would result in their case being closed and potentially sometimes them being discharged. I can't really explain why that is, but we can only control so much of the equation with each case. So I just wanted to add that extra comment. We have as you know, the dashboard, the data dashboard has been launched, and that took a lot of time between me and the data analyst working on fine-tuning it and making sure that it was ready to launch. And now that it has been launched, Tiffany, my data analyst, is still working on maintaining it and keeping it current, but we have a little more time to think about other things like analysis of the data and analysis of the crime trends and things that could be more proactive in the community. So we've shifted our focus to thinking about those kinds of things and working with other partners. Like we have a trip planned to the Southern Tier Crime Analysis Center in a couple of weeks to talk with them about how we can work better together and be more proactive in thinking about trends and patterns and ways to be better at public safety.
All good. And I am curious that you had mentioned earlier that there's a backlog of cases ready for trial and they're just lined up. We got the third county court judge a couple of years ago now, and that seemed to be a big issue. In terms of addressing backlog, what do you think is the limiting factor at this point?
Well, one of the major limiting factors with the trials that are currently scheduled is that we have been engaged in a pattern of over the last 12 months or more of bringing in out-of-town attorneys to handle assigned cases. There are attorneys from Syracuse and Rochester who have high-level cases that are scheduled for trial, and they're extremely busy, and their schedules were very frustrating for our courts in terms of trying to schedule. Like the murder trial that is scheduled would have been scheduled much sooner had it not been for the Rochester attorneys being difficult to work with in terms of putting something on the calendar. We have, I think, like I said, a pattern of not assigning local attorneys to higher level cases, and there's an attorney from Syracuse who probably has 100 cases down here now because he will take high-level cases and doesn't say no, but it also reflects a lack of local attorneys who are willing to take cases, and I think that's a problem that needs to be looked at.
Do you think that's contributing to the number of unsentenced in our jail right now?
Yes. Okay.
All right. Lance will be joining us in a bit. I think this is something we can ask him about. Okay. Anything else from the district attorney's office? All right. Let's keep moving. Next up is Department of Emergency Response. I see Michael and there's Jessica. Yes, and Joe. Okay, welcome everybody.
Welcome and good afternoon. Just a couple of things I'd like to highlight that are in the report, and just a couple shout outs. The first thing I'd like to do is recognize Jessica. Jessica Burfus obtained her Certified Emergency Manager certification at the end of December. The Certified Emergency Manager certification through the International Association of Emergency Managers is really the gold standard when it comes to emergency management credentialing. Typically, it takes several years once an individual decides to embark on the journey to become a certified CEM. And I'm just really proud of Jessica. It's a remarkable professional accomplishment, and I think we're very lucky to have somebody with this credential working here in Tompkins County. The other thing I'd like to highlight is relative to the grant that we spoke about earlier. So I really just want to shout out to both Joe and Bridget for the amount of work they put into this. Bridget in particular did a lot of writing in this grant, worked as liaison with all the local community leaders in setting up the public discussion, and really just did a tremendous amount of work. And I think sometimes the work at the county administration level maybe doesn't necessarily get recognized, and I just think it was really important to just highlight the amount of work that Bridget had put into this program. And then the last thing I'd like to mention, just before I turn it over to Joe for an RMR update, what we've decided to add to the TomStat report is a section on EMS current affairs, or EMS in the news, highlighting articles both locally and nationally to give the members of the Public Safety Committee a snapshot of what's really happening with EMS, again, not only locally, but nationally. EMS in itself is in a real crisis nationally, and we thought that if we could share some news about what's happening across the country, that it might provide some perspective. And I also just want to thank the Public Safety Committee for their support in helping to get the RMR program up and running. And I'm pleased to now, turn it over to Joe to talk about some of the progress that we've made since the last meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So I just wanted to kind of run through, obviously one of the big things we focused on last year was bringing some EMS education to Tompkins County. In December, the fall EMT basic class finished up. Initially, there was 20 spots that were available for students to sign up. They had 16 applicants for the class. On day one, 12 students showed up. 2 of them did drop out relatively early. It was a married couple that had some family issues. They were unable to obligate to the class. Of the 10 that remained, all 10 of them finished the class. 9 of them passed their state physical or their practical skills exam at the beginning of December. One of them did have COVID during that exam, so he's testing sometime in January with Syracuse. I did speak to the instructor. She has not gotten any results on the written exam yet. However, she does anticipate 100% passing based on the class averages. She has no worries about the students. There is a spring 2024 class that is starting January 29th. 16 students have enrolled in that course so far, and only 5 seats remain open. So I think that those numbers really are phenomenal. Being that it's our pilot, our first set of EMT classes.
Joe, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I read it, it looked like you had 6 spots open. So those are 6 more spots. It wasn't there were 15 applications and only 6.
Correct. 16.
Okay.
As of today, I went back and double checked the number. So as of lunchtime today, 16 students have enrolled and 5 seats remain open. So there is still room for 5 more students if anybody wants to take the class. I did also speak with Upstate Medical University. They have applied for a grant that gives educational opportunities beyond the EMT class to rural communities. And they do anticipate on focusing some of that money towards Tompkins County. So that'll bring classes like ACLS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support, Pediatric Advanced Life Support, and other elective certifications that EMS providers can hold. So it just kind of increases our educational opportunities here in Tompkins County. And then the last thing that we're excited to announce is that the job posting for the EMT position was posted back beginning of the year. We have not pulled an official list yet. However, unofficially, we have 16 part-time applicants. 8 of those are from outside of Tompkins County, and 16 have applied for the full-time position, and 6 of those are from outside of Tompkins County, and they are not the same 16 people. And we still are receiving lots of verbal interest on the program. So we look forward to starting that application process and meeting these individuals and start selecting candidates.
That's outstanding news. Okay. Questions or comments? Michael, you mentioned a start date, a tentative start date of around April 1st. Is that, can I say that in public on a microphone?
Sure. That is our goal. We've been working very closely with Terry Carroll, and we have secured 3 vehicles. We've recently spec'd out the lettering that we must have on the vehicles to comply with the Department of Health guidelines. So, you know, it's ambitious, but that's our target date right now. We're hoping that we'll start interviews first week of mid-February. First week of February, with the intention of trying to onboard folks the first onboarding orientation day of March.
And there's a New York State approval we need, right? Do we have that, or have we applied?
We do not, no, because the last piece that we need in order to receive the New York State approval is to codify a relationship with a medical director, and we're hoping that that will be resolved very shortly.
Okay, we passed a resolution on that, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's all good news. Anything from the committee? Anybody else? Okay. Jessica, congratulations. That's an accomplishment. That's really good.
Thank you.
I did have a couple questions, but I'd go to the committee first. Anybody have anything for, on page 28 of the packet, it says Tompkins County currently does not have a local COAD, community organizations active in a disaster, or VOAD, voluntary organizations active in a disaster. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about what are those organizations?
So they're very similar, structurally speaking. A VOAD is an organization. It's typically has a direct connection with the County Office of Emergency Management, but it's basically volunteers that want to assist during disasters, and a COAD or companies or corporations that are willing to assist during a disaster. Jeff Dunn will be our project manager here in Tompkins County, and we're looking to really move more towards a COAD model versus a VOAD model. And simply because if we engage with local companies that are interested in assisting during times of emergencies, they can really manage their own staff. What will often happen is a company would agree to participate in the COAD, and then depending on what type of emergency or disaster we might face as a county, release some of their staff to assist in helping us deal with that local disaster, whereas a VOAD would mean we'd have basically a personnel pool of individuals that are interested in assisting in the disaster response, but it can get difficult to manage all the individual VOAD volunteers. So we sent Jeff down to a program at the Emergency Management Institute, which is FEMA's training center in Maryland. That program was completely funded by the federal government to learn how to put together a COAD or a VOAD for that matter. And again, we're leaning more towards a COAD. There's a lot of examples where there's been great success in both VOAD and COAD models, and we're kind of excited about it. And that's one of our department goals this year, is to work towards that. So I can give you an example, Rich, if you'd like.
Yes, please.
I'll just give you an example of one I know of locally in Bradford County, Pennsylvania, right on the New York border. A couple years ago, just because of a lot of increased flooding that they had, they started a COAD, and they got a number of major corporations and companies that were willing to assist. So when there was instances where residents had a lot of debris on their property from the flooding, these companies would come in and volunteer both the staffing and the equipment to help remove that debris, and often at no cost, not always. That's one example. And so, like, if we ever had a major flooding event here, and we had a lot of debris, for example, to have those type of resources would be helpful, especially if we had like a regional event where, it wasn't just Tompkins County that was affected, and there might be limited state resources that could come in to assist. Having a really good COAD established and companies that are willing to come in and assist can be helpful. Another example where COADs and VOADs have been used is sometimes it's necessary to have a points of distribution set up around the county, commonly referred to as a pod. And what a pod might do is distribute water or cleaning supplies to residents, again, that may have been affected by a flood event. So if we ever had a situation where we had to distribute, thousands of bottles of potable water to community members that didn't have water because of a natural disaster, we could call upon the COAD to come in, help to organize that points of distribution and handle the distribution of the water, for example, as a resource to the county, so we wouldn't have to directly manage it.
Okay. This sounds like a really exciting addition to our toolbox, if we can do this. When Jeff is ready, if possible, that would be a great thing to get a presentation on to the committee, if you're willing to do that. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're excited about it.
Thank you on that. I did have something else I was going to ask about. Let's see. On page 31, I was going to say congratulations on the EMT progress, but Joe, you've spoken to that. But the information in the box on current EMS affairs, the AMR ambulance from Auburn that looks like it's stopping service, will that have impacts in Lansing and Groton?
I think there's always an opportunity for it to impact us because, the way the EMS network works is there's a lot of what we refer to as mutual aid and a lot of support. So it could. I don't want to say definitively that it could have an impact, but it's certainly possible. And I think really what this illustrates, this is a private company. It's actually the largest private ambulance company in the nation, and for them to withdraw, it's telling. I think it really illustrates just a crisis that's occurring nationally with regards to EMS. And why I say nationally is because they have the ability to move resources locally to a particular area if they are experiencing like staffing shortages, for example. But it is worrisome to us. And again, this is one of the reasons why we thought it would, just be a good idea for us to start sharing some of the stories that are occurring, not only again locally, but nationally. Joe, do you want to add anything to that? Because you might have some more specific details.
I think just kind of echo off of what Mike was saying. We may see some effects from that here locally, but it's going to be through the domino effect. Currently, the City of Auburn ambulance is taking over the service for AMR. So where AMR was responding to the county, now they're pulling ambulances out of the City of Auburn to respond to those calls. And Auburn does not have the staff nor the resources to just add to their current fleet. So that's kind of leaving them in an open spot. So we're going to be seeing like Southern Cuga ambulance out of King Ferry and Fort Town out of Moravia may be responding towards the city on a more frequent basis, which again is going to leave their districts open, which may mean our county may be stepping in to take some of those calls. Having listened to some of the meetings regarding AMR, I don't think they're anticipating it to be a huge ask. So we may not even see any impact from that, but that is something that is in the back of our mind that we may see a slight need for assistance to Cuga County.
Okay. I guess this is something for us to continue to watch, particularly I would think for the Groton ambulance service. So, Lee,
and Rich, if I just would like to add something to this. It wasn't like there was a lot of discussion about it. They just made a corporate decision. And I think that that's something that it's really important for us to keep in mind because, obviously EMS is an aspect of public safety. And when it's privatized like this, there's always that risk that, the principals just make a decision and they just decide it's no longer lucrative for them because it is their business. And they make these decisions and then they don't necessarily have any responsibility to ensure that they do it in such a way that the community can gear up for the gap that they've created. So and again that's not just happening here; it's happening elsewhere as well. So this is something that we should be aware of.
Michael, I think you make a really important point there, and this is something that I believe it's critical that we do with the rapid medical response. That it is truly a collaborative between the county and all the different towns and the city, that we look at this as in a holistic way, precisely because you don't want individual actors causing impacts that ripple well beyond where they are operating, because everybody else has to fill in for when they're stopping or changing services. So I think what we're doing here is a really much stronger model. Lee, you're nodding your head. You know a lot more about this than I do.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael, and in particular, Joel have pretty much captured it, but I saw it 3 weeks ago, New Year's Day, and got pulled out of Groton to a call to cover the 4-town ambulance out of Moravia that ultimately was a bad heart call, and we took him to St. Joseph's in Syracuse, and our one available rig on that day was out of service for 3.5 hours, and Dryden consequently is getting pulled into Groton to backfill where Groton went to Cayuga County. The other thing is, and to your point, what we're doing is a little different than the response they're having up there. Part of the issue that the frustration they had with AMR pulling out is that the most direct effect had to do with advanced life support intercepts, but it also was found that really a lot of the squads that were running at basic levels, basic transport, were just kind of letting AMR take the transports in addition to providing that ALS support. So it's really a complex situation that some of those departments are having to shore up and really step forward and cover their contract areas where, you know, there's a little contrast here in that ours are pretty solid in being able to maintain their territories. But I think they got 14 ambulance services throughout the county in one form or another, all at varying levels of staffing. So, but nationwide trends, regional impacts, it's, I don't think our program could be coming at any better time to shore things up.
Yes, and it certainly at NISEC this year, I anticipate there'll be a lot of discussion about ambulance service, because this is an upstate problem. It's just going all across. So, yeah, lots to do. Okay. Well, thank you for that report. Anything else for Department of Emergency Response? And the one item we have is the assigned counsel program, but I think Lance hasn't gotten here yet. I think what we might do is I might just reach out to Lance and see if I can meet with him and talk to him about the issues that came up here today, and just hear what he has to say. And we'll make sure we get a report on it next meeting. Is there any other business to come before the Public Safety Committee? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, so moved, and all those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Last guy here will make
Thank you.
the motion.
Okay.